Markets are absolutely melting to the downside. Are we going to get a larger reversal back up? Is this the bottom? Is it going to go lower? We have an absolute phenomenal chart master joining the stream today. Can't wait to get him in the charts and breaking this down with us together. We're going to be talking about what's going on in this market, what we should be doing. We saw about 11% rebound all the way today. Is that going to be it? Are we going to get up above 55, 55.3? Or are we going to be dropping back down to the 53s, 52s, 50s, and below? Everybody hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding the bell. This is an opportunity that you didn't know you're waiting for. Let's get into it. Let's talk about this market. Let's freaking go. What's up, everybody? How you doing? This market is it's giving some fruits to those that are prepared, and it is absolutely wrecking those that are not. But let's be honest, every single one of us that are in this market, I don't care if you have a long-term view or not, we're all looking at this going, what the mother? I get it. It's a little bit frustrating because we're seeing this on the charts right now. We have this massive meltdown from this rejection point that we had back here on July 29th. We had a rising wedge coming into it telling us that we were likely going to break down. Here we are. We completely lost the plot here. Does it have to do with the Japanese yen? Does it have to do with World War III? Does that? All we can do is be prepared. This is why on this channel, this is why every one of you that's here watching BitLab Academy on a daily basis, this is why all of you, I've been sharing with you the different variety of things, the possibilities that could happen. And we were still talking about these levels down here. Let's actually take this a little bit larger down here at this 53 level. And then of course, look at where we've had this box. I didn't add this box. This box has been here for some time. This was telling me and telegraphing to you all, this was a possibility. Of course, we did not want this, but the price action has melted all the way down into this order block until this rebound that we're getting right now. Are we going to push all the way up here? Break back down? Well, let's go through some of the things that are going on in this market, and then we're going to bring on our guest. But just notice this. Bitcoin is holding on by a thread on this one. Let's actually refresh this because this is, look at that, up $4,000 since this morning when I was talking about this. We're basically hanging just above, almost just below $1.1 trillion on the market cap. We've actually lost $2 trillion on the total market cap here. What is going on in this market? Well, as I said, we had a lot of stuff going on with what's happening with Iran, with Israel, with what's going on with the Japanese yen. I mean, the noise in the market right now is incredible. We also see Biden's top economic advisor, Gene Sperling. This is the one that said he didn't understand what money printing was, basically just stepped down. We also can see that multiple brokerages, including Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, UPS, CenturyLink, and Interactive Brokers were all currently down a little bit this morning with all of this activity, everybody coming back online, trying to figure out what the heck they should be doing. We also see this is that Japanese yen trade, boom, melting to the downside. And if you want to, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on here. Go through this thread. I'm going to put it in the live chat so you can all see it. Go through this thread. This is Kobayashi letter talking about this, basically this carry trade. This has to do with the fact that their interest rates were basically zero since I can remember. And they just rise the interest rates, making that money cost something. So a lot of people, that was not only a signal to a lot of people, but also was an indication to people that had that free money that they were deploying in the markets to go and close some of those positions. And we're seeing that melt down on the yen versus the dollar value here, signaling a pretty big shutdown. We also saw the South Korean stock market shut down overnight because of the volatility that we're seeing there. Now, we can also see the biggest stock market crash in Japan since 1987. So there is stuff. This is that indication global markets matter. It's not just that altcoin you're trading. So do you know who the largest holder of Japanese stocks? The Bank of Japan. You know who the largest holder of U.S. Treasuries? Japan. This is that signal in that risk market matrix right now when people are going, what should I be doing? This is that de-risking, because what happens if Japan starts basically getting out, exiting some of those U.S. Treasury positions? Then we can see right here, Taiwan stock market also had a huge crash, the worst in 57 years. And you know what? We're going to dive into this in a second because I was going to get into some VIX and some other stuff and all that. But my name's Kellam. Welcome to the BitLab Academy stream. This is the opportunity you've been waiting for. So without any further ado, we got a guest today to break down some of these markets. He's so worried. He's hiding from the markets. He's got the shades on. We got Mr. Matthew Highland in the house,
What's going
the
on,
chart
Kelly?
master. How you doing, friend? What's going on
Was
with this market? Thanks for hopping on the Twitter Spaces with me last night.
Yep.
What is your portfolio up or down?
Oh, down. Definitely down. 100% down. Not 100% down, but it's 100% definitely down. But if we go
So,
to Bitcoin,
are you does that mean you're just gonna exit the markets? You're gonna sell because you don't believe in anything?
oh, definitely not. Certainly not. This reminds me of the 2020 crash, as we all remember. It's very similar to, especially with the VIX rising. This happened really fast, and I was talking to someone else earlier. I don't think I've ever seen crypto move this fast, other than in 2020. Even during bear markets, the declines don't happen this rapidly. So this was a speculation event of some sort that we just seen, and it's if you look back to 2020, that ended up being the opportunity to buy. That was the best opportunity to buy, and a lot of people within a year were up extreme multiples, 10x, 15x, 20x, 30x within a year off that low. So that ended up being the opportunity back in 2020 to enter the crypto market when most were trying to exit due to the fear, the panic. And if you looked on X or Twitter at that time, it was just nonstop, just everything's going down. And if you look at Twitter today, what do you see? It's just, what do you see? Emergency rate cuts. People are talking about the Japan situation, stock market crash, et cetera, et cetera. But then when you look at the charts, if you look at like the S&P 500, it's not, to me, I don't see, the amount of destruction. Like it's definitely not lining up the amount of fear that you're seeing on Twitter versus when you look at the charts for the S&P 500 and the stock markets. I think for the crypto space, it's definitely justified. This has been really brutal for crypto. But then for the traditional markets, the amount of fear and just everything, the doomers out in full force, it just isn't lining up, at least to me, when I look at the charts.
So, hey, let's look at the charts. What do you see? Are you okay with sharing some of your magic with us?
Yeah, of course. Let's do this. So we're gonna start with Bitcoin, and we'll just get like right down to the basics. So this is on. I'm gonna move this to the weekly time frame. So currently, it's actually above this low from back in July. In this area, holding as support, we tested this 49K area. If this can end up holding on the weekly time frame, and especially if we can get back above this 56.8K area, this consolidation zone that we've been in for many months, it would be a very decent, good sign that this ultimately was the bottom wick right here. And there have been a lot of people calling for this 49K low, and this was basically where the ETF launched. So we've kind of seen a full reset of this whole ETF period and retesting this breakout, which we never actually did back then, and then bouncing off of it and then seeing a wick like this would be very optimal. But of course, we do have a few days or a full week left to go. It's only Monday. So there's still lots of time between now and the weekly close, but we'll continue to watch that. And now we move over to the S&P 500. If you look at this chart has just gone up massively over the past two years or so now. And every single time, like during this time period, people were calling for a complete, financial crisis, recession, and then it continued up. And then back in April and May, we heard the same things, that the stock market is toast and all this, and then it continued up. And now once again, we're seeing this, and we haven't even made a lower low. Like I would understand the sentiment being so negative if we had gone below this level right here, but we're not below it. Then if you look at the RSI, this is on the weekly time frame. This weekly RSI is currently making a lower low while the price is making a higher low. So ultimately, this could end up forming, if we can bounce off this would end up forming bullish divergence for the stock market that would give it legs to continue higher. So I just don't understand why the amount of panic we're seeing everywhere. Now we look at the VIX. This is
now before you dive in deeper with the VIX, just give a brief example of how VIX is used in markets.
VIX is used to show volatility. So usually during major sell-offs, we'll see a spike of the VIX. So if we go back to 2008, this was during the financial crisis. This was around October of 2008. We saw a huge spike as the sell-off intensified. Then we go to 2020, same thing. And now currently right here, this is the highest it's been since the COVID crash back in 2020. And even more interesting, if we look at the 2-week RSI currently, it's only been this high 3 other times, which was back in 2020, back in 2008, and then back in 2007, we had a spike. But if you go back before that, it was never that high. So usually when the 2-week RSI has gotten this high, this has marked the bottom at some point. And now there's still a lot of time left. There's still 4 more days left till the weekly or 2-week closes. So maybe we haven't exactly hit the bottom, but I would say we are definitely close for the stocks in regards to this, as the VIX shows historically.
So what you're saying then is, like, I don't want to say it's much ado about nothing, because it's $2 trillion that have melted off the stock market. And by the way, everybody that's here for crypto, we have to talk about this just like we have to talk about politics right now, because these things are having a huge impact on what the risk narrative is and where different things are going to go. And right now there's a lot of de-risking in the crypto market. So with the VIX, basically the forward-looking expectation of volatility, suggesting that we may be potentially coming into a local top. There's also data that shows that this is the highest the VIX has been since, I think the last 2 times was 2020 and 2008, which we know that was the COVID crash, a global economic shutdown, and then of course 2008 was the housing crisis. So you're thinking that this is more of a massive, I don't want to say washout, but massive reset and potential sort of risk coming back into the market soon. I mean, I can't imagine that this is an indication that there's likely going to be some money printing somewhere very soon.
I do think that we will see the money printing turn back on, and we've actually kind of seen that. I could pull up the M2 money supply, but I also think that the reaction currently is just what you would essentially see at a bottom. And usually during these last few dips that we've had, we've seen sentiment get to that point. And the question I said last night in the Twitter Spaces is, like, why can't the stock market go up and are people not allowed to take profits? If you're up, like, let's say you entered right here back in December, and now you're up this much, you're up about 20% ish. You're not allowed to take profits. And usually I think this is what's going on. I think this is just profit taking. We've been seeing it during these dips for the past few years. And I'd even argue this whole correction back in 2022 was just profit taking off of this major run that we saw. But for some reason, a lot of the doomer folks like to use profit taking to spin their narrative that everything's going to collapse. And if you've listened to them for the past 2 years or the past 5 years or the past 10 years, you've been wrong. They've been wrong. And usually these same people continue to push this narrative because for whatever reason, they're invested in it in that position, or they get the engagement from it. But I don't see this. Like, if we were to break below this area around 49.70, then I think it's warranted. But right now, this isn't enough to warrant the amount of fear that I'm seeing right now.
So let's go ahead and pull up. You showed Bitcoin. What are you seeing on Ethereum? Because I saw that you drew a pretty good correlation of what happened with Bitcoin ETF, and then also now Ethereum. Of course, there's bigger things at play, but that fractal still lines up.
Yeah, it does actually. And it's kind of interesting. So with Ethereum, it's been now 13 days since the ETF launch, which was right, I believe, here. No, it was on this candle right here in July 22nd right here. So it's this candle right here. Let me zoom in a little bit, actually. And it's been 13 days. And the interesting thing is, if you look back at the Bitcoin ETF launched right here on this candle, and it bottomed 12 days later before reversing. We broke below support. We saw Ethereum do the same thing last night, broke below support quite dramatically. But it also, if you look on the weekly time frame, it tested this support and has since bounced. And essentially, this is still not a lower low until I'd say close below this area, and we're currently above it. So for Ethereum, this was a major flush. I did read that there was a Japanese trading firm that had blown up that had a lot of Ethereum. You might be more familiar with that, Kelly. But currently, I would say Ethereum really, like for Bitcoin and Ethereum at this point, Ethereum, if it can reclaim this area at 2,800, it'd be a very bullish sign that this is the bottom. And then for Bitcoin, I'd like to see it reclaim this 56.7K area to confirm or at least further validate that this was a bottom, a temporary bottom at least, and that this dump is over.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Now, what are you seeing in terms of what's going on with the altcoin markets and everything there? Because I know a lot of people are also layered in fairly heavily to alts, and can give you, what's your sort of perspective on that? I know you're saying likely after the election, but what's your thoughts there?
So I've been saying for a little while now, I think, a few months that or maybe a few weeks, that I don't think altcoins for the most part will see the drastic multiples like 2x or 3x or 4x like we were seeing back in January and February and March, until after the election. I do think if Gary Gensler gets fired, I think this whole altcoin space has been kind of pushed underwater like a ball underneath water. And if Gary Gensler were to get fired, this would get released. Currently, if we're looking at this on the weekly time frame, this does look like a head and shoulders top, right? But I would say if we can close, if we deeply wick below this last night, but we're working on reclaiming this, so we're very close to reclaiming this area or getting back above it. So if we're able to get back above this, this would be a positive sign. We want to see a weekly candle close above this, and ultimately we want to see the altcoin, and this ticker is others, which is altcoins outside of the top 10. So these are more of your, I guess, mid-tier and low cap alts. You'd want to see this hold and then continue to hold, and then this would actually be a bottom formation here. If we were to lose this and close the weekly below this, it would put us potentially much further down, which we don't want to see. I'm going to go over to total 3, which is all the alts except Bitcoin and Ether. So this also came down to this support. It didn't really go below this area, so this is more healthier, which makes sense because it's less further, or it's less down the risk curve. It's less riskier because it includes coins like Solana and BNB. But ultimately, for this, I'd say if we can close above here, which we're currently above, it'd be a pretty positive sign. So we want to see this hold. And a lot of this, we just have to wait until the weekly candle closes. We can't determine it now by any means. So we're kind of in limbo until the weekly closes. But we're definitely seeing a bounce with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a lot of the alts currently. And we want to continue to see that going into the weekly close.
I mean, I think, necessarily having the huge gap down that we had over the weekend, we got that CME futures gap above us now, but also this is the first time we've had this big of a drop over a weekend while ETFs are live. This is obviously for Bitcoin and for Ethereum. So I think everybody's, I don't want to say on the sidelines, but there's a lot of questionability right now of how are the institutions, how are the mom and pops, how are the ETF participants going to basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It actually would be kind of good, I would imagine, to either go sideways or have a little bit of slight downward action into Wednesday, to absorb some of that negative sentiment and then potentially reverse into the end of the week. But what are you seeing if you're looking at the markets right now, for instance, Bitcoin? Of course, we can look at it at the weekly, we can look at it at the daily, we can look at it at the 4 hour, but everybody wants to see that right now on like the 4 hour and below, because they want to know what's happening today. What should I be doing?
Well, I would say with the ETF, I think we're so far seeing a positive reaction. There was people saying, and last night I remember reading that because the ETFs were going to gap down, they were going to open up lower, much lower than they closed on Friday, that there was a potential that we would see any sort of leverage sold off, which would mean that the Bitcoin would have to be sent to Coinbase to be sold on spot. So if that were the case, then it's been absorbed so far. But it's also possible that they didn't need to, and we've seen enough or buying pressure so far that they haven't had to even send Coinbase or Bitcoin to Coinbase to sell on spot due to buying from the ETF participants in the market.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Now, we talked Total 3, we talked Bitcoin, Ethereum, we talked about the VIX. Are there any charts, altcoin charts that you are looking at, potential setups or targets that are kind of tickling you right now? Or are you trying to stay a little hands off with that? Are you playing any of the volatility that's there for the alts? Or are you hands off?
So personally, I'm looking for entries currently, and I've seen some. And if you look across the board, a lot of these alts have come back down to some form of support that was much lower. And if you look at others, though, like I've said, I think I said it last night. With others, if others can close back above, then I do think it would be a good sign for the alts and a great opportunity to potentially enter. And people usually, when you're in the moment, when there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of panic throughout the market, it's hard to recognize it. But if we just look at this and if we can close above this, then I do think that this market, or at least for the alts, they're still alive. There's still an opportunity that we get this continuation going into the fall and then going into next year. But it really depends on how this plays out, I'd say. But you can make entries currently, and then if this does close below, maybe consider exiting. That's pretty much the way I would approach this currently.
Well, it seems like that's going to be kind of, whether it's today, next week, or 3 months from now, depending on what the price action does, seems that box level you have is somewhat of a pretty important gateway to future upside in any sort of consideration of continuation because of those lows and the breakdown point that we just saw.
Oh yes, definitely, certainly. If we were to like go below it, like let's say we did continue, this could end up being resistance later on. But if we were to break through that, then we could see push toward those highs afterwards. Something like that were to possibly play out. With this box now, it's definitely a significant area of resistance and support just going forward, and it has been for the past few months.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Now, are you looking at all at the Bitcoin dominance charts, or do you kind of leave that to Benjamin Cowan?
I look at it. My take on Bitcoin dominance is for so far for this year, it was fluctuating around these levels for a while. It's now broken out. I believe this is a weekly close with the highest close ever, or highest close of this cycle so far. So I think I would expect this to continue up, but I also think it's probably closer to topping at some point. And even if you go like back here during this time period, a lot of alts outperformed Bitcoin. Most of them didn't, but I don't think it was, like, in my opinion, it wasn't too difficult to find alts that outperformed Bitcoin during that time period, like Solana, AVAX, FET, Render. There was a lot. I'm sure most of them were known by a lot of people on Twitter, like they were all over. I was discussing them at the time. So even if Bitcoin dominance does continue up, I don't think it means that all alts will underperform Bitcoin. But I do think whenever this breaks down, whether it be in a few months from now or when Bitcoin breaks through all-time highs, then I do think we'll see a lot of upside with the alts. And historically, for the most part, the most downside starts when Bitcoin clears its all-time highs for good, which we have not seen yet. So I'd say when we clear this whole box, I would say Bitcoin dominance is likely to start to trend downward at that point.
And I completely agree. And I think that yesterday on the space we did, Druth was bringing up this 231-day metric. And I went ahead and mapped it this morning. And this is the Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin halving.
Yeah.
231 days after each one of these it's been interesting. This last two,
When
this
it
is when the
drops,
altcoin
right?
market started. When this drops, everybody, this is altcoins ripping. Look at this. Same thing. Bitcoin halving, 231 days on the day altcoin market started. So if that metric were to play out again, that would take us into December 8th, which would be about a month after, basically settling after everything happens from the election. However, this doesn't have to play out. We could push up higher, travel sideways, come down. We could also just break down from here. But the point being is the last two cycles, we have seen this hit on the dot. So let's just mark that out as basically regionally as a time we should be paying attention to. We could actually make this a little bit more transparent just so it's on the chart, but not dominating. But the point being is we are coming into a period, coming into a period where we will likely see something positive, but it's not yet. I think you hit the nail on the head, Matt, regarding the sort of waiting game right now. The risk coming out of markets is also, it's going to come more significantly out of these altcoins. And so if there's anything, whether it's Solana, Avalanche, Link, everybody, I was telling you all about Link, potentially, where's my chart at? Talking about, here we go. Talking about Link coming down into that mid 9, low 9 area. This is this line that we have right here, because this is essentially these range tops where we had the price action. I don't know
I
why
think you
it's
have my
not.
screen on the.
There we go. These previous range tops starting all the way back here, August 12th, and then 2022, and then again, November 7th, 2022. And when the price was pushing all the way up here into the 21s, didn't feel like it could happen until we were talking about this potential, essentially head and shoulders-esque vibe, which we also have right here. And if we measure that out, and we've been talking about this on the channel, if we come here just like this is essentially, this is a target that it's essentially attempting to coming down into. I mean, this dropped all the way down here into the low 8s. Actually, that's actually significant, especially for how incredible, how incredibly integrated this altcoin is with the rest of the market. But it's really interesting
It
to
also
see
had a
what's
lot of
going on right
support
now.
back there.
What's
It
that?
also had like a lot. It also had a lot of support back there from
Yeah.
last year. If you look,
Yeah.
you zoom out.
If we put a line right here, option H,
Yeah.
let's go on the daily. We could see, where's this blue line at? Boom. Look at all this rejection, rejection regionally, rejection below, rejection at. So much. I mean, there's even bounces over here. So this is a known quantity in the price on the chart. But it's right now, it's just, I shared a tweet last night talking about, let me see if I can find it. I shared a link last night talking about essentially, and I really do believe this. Where is this at? Right. One, I just want to share this. This is what it feels like if you're new. For all of us that have been here, this is, it's like, all right, we've been here before. Let's hang out. But really, this is a metric right here. Where is it at? I know you guys shared it. I don't know where is it. Right here. Remember, crisis, especially crisis in the markets, leads to major bull trends. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins shake out in full effect. But TradFi futures, Asia markets melting down. This is not crypto is failing. Do not think right now there's some defect in the crypto market. This is a response to what's happening globally. This is opportunity that most people were not sure that they were going to get. And in fact, some of you, I've even seen you on this channel say it in the live comments, say, man, if Bitcoin goes down to 53 again or 49, or if Ethereum goes below 2,900, we are in this opportunity zone right now. It's feeling good for those that are prepared or those that have the patience to endure. So I don't want to hold you hostage all day, Matt. Anything else you wanted to share with the audience before you go? And then we'll dive into some more TA with the crew.
I would just say when things are most, when there's no hope left, that's usually when the market reverses. And on a day like today, we're seeing that across the board with people saying it's over, it's done, et cetera, et cetera. Crypto has no hope. And if you've been here long enough, like Kelly and I have, that's not the case. And it's just a temporary emotions, the same way how when we're going up, it feels like we're just going to keep on going up. It's never going to end. We probably all felt that back in January and February and whatnot. So it's just, it swings. We get the extreme extreme highs and then we get the extreme lows. And right now we're at the extreme lows, and usually the extreme lows have turned out to be great opportunities. I think that's where we are right now.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. Matthew Highland, everybody. Make sure you go and follow him. I just shared that just so you can see. It's at Matthew Highland _ There's only one underscore, and there's only one Highlander, Matthew Highland. Make sure you go and give him a follow. He's got a YouTube channel as well and a Patreon. Yeah. All of his links are right here on his Twitter. Matthews, I appreciate you joining us here and sharing your wisdom of the markets and what's going on, and helping everybody sort of settle their boats, realizing that this is opportunity. This isn't the end.
Thank you, Kelly. It was good having me on. I enjoyed it. So
I appreciate you. I'll check in with you again soon, my friend.
All right. Take it easy.
Yeah. Now, everybody, you heard from the horse's mouth himself. He's been nailing these markets with basically charts, breakdowns, what's going on, what we should be paying attention to. Remember, for the last couple of weeks, he's been sharing those Bollinger Bands, how tight those Bollinger Bands were on what's going on here. Now, I do think that Matthew Highland actually just did an absolute transportation of being. And with that being, I think he's shape-shifting. And so let's go ahead and see what he's got to say. Oh, wait, that's not Matthew Highland. That is Mr.
What's up, guys?
How you doing, my friend? That is
situated here. I had like no time to prepare, but let's see.
Hey, while you prepare, I'll just share a couple more things here on my charts. So we got Mr. Kevin Svensson in the house now. We are dominating you guys with absolutely some of the best people in the markets. I do want to just highlight here. He was talking about the VIX. And when we see this, the volatility index, it does typically correlate when it rises significantly that the traditional markets fall. And the reason why that's important is because it's screaming de-risk in the market. De-risk meaning liquidity coming out of these tech stocks. And we, over the last 6 or 7 months, we've seen Intel fall over 40%. We're seeing huge, almost $2 trillion coming out of the markets in the last 24 hours. We're seeing huge shakeups in the market. But what does this mean? How did the market perform 1 year after? Well, the S&P 500 was up 54%, NASDAQ up 68%, Bitcoin up 898%, Treasuries up minus 19%, gold only plus 1.5. This is Peter Schiff's bread and butter right here, only up 1.5%, while every other asset class other than Treasuries had significant returns. So right now, remember, when we see these huge sell-offs, this is just opportunity zones. We also see Mr. 100 basically brought a total of 1,100 Bitcoin today alone. In addition to that, we also see huge trading volume this morning for the Bitcoin ETFs. This is people in and out. I think it's going to probably dominate to the outside today, but that's okay. There's a massive gap down, meaning ETFs closed Friday, they open back up Monday, and we're seeing that the market dropped so significantly, they're waking up and they can't trade these ETFs 24/7 like Bitcoin. And so I'm sure there's a lot of sort of hyper anxious people in the market, and that's going to be okay. This is going to spell absolute rewards for people that are paying attention right now. In addition to that, this is from Vivek. I agree with this chart. This is a general sort of shape of market cycle trends. Everybody right now is saying there's going to be doom and gloomers saying the market cycle's over, but those that are paying attention to this are going to say, holy mackerel, I think I have an opportunity. Dave Portnoy just did it this morning. He's been screaming it for the last couple months. He wasn't going to buy until there was a 4 in front of that Bitcoin US dollar value, and we dipped down into that $49,000 level today. And there's going to be a lot of people like that. So while some people are selling, people that have more endurance and more long-term vision are buying. In addition to all this, if we look at this from the rational root, yes, we lost a short-term holder cost basis. That's this line right here, 65,000. We've just tapped this middle line, which we've done in bull cycles before. In fact, it's almost reminiscent of that COVID crash that we saw back here in March of 2020. What happened on this? People panicked. Over here, they were losing their minds because they're asking why'd they panic. Other people say, holy moly, this is opportunity. Are we going to get a move down here to 39? I don't think we'll go that deep, but we'll have to see. I didn't think we were going to get this move over the weekend down to 49. But throwing it back over to my main man, Mr. Svensson himself. So the market.
What is up, guys?
What do we do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is it's interesting to see the sentiment right now because I think what a lot of people are seeing is just complete panic everywhere. But if you look at all the major markets, if you look at Bitcoin, you look at the S&P 500. First of all, the S&P 500, yes, we are down significantly from the top. How much are we down right now? I haven't even checked today. We're down almost 10% off the top, but we are well above the 2021 or the end of 2021 high. So this is still macro bullish in my opinion. Right, there are signs that we're breaking down. We lost that previous S&P 500 resistance, 5,200. We are trying to bounce now in between that range, and most likely what we're going to get is, I don't think we're going to hold that trend line. I think we're going to get a lot of choppy price action, right? Because right now we are moving into a period of wartime. I mean, it's pretty clear. Now, the type of warfare that is being fought in the world today is very, very different from anything in the past. So it doesn't look the same, but it is global war in many areas. And so one thing that I was actually just coding this indicator to plot wars on the chart, which I might release on TradingView for free at some point. But I was just curious to see what happens in the past during war. And oftentimes there's just a lot of volatility, right? Doesn't mean that the market's over, everything's over, but you look at the Vietnam War, of course, that was the longest war, and it's, tons of volatility in this range. Interest rates were high, inflation was out of control. And so it's not all that different right now in terms of the sort of scenario we're in. I mean, everything is different, but my point is, we're at this point, we're at a moment where we're likely going to get a lot of chop. Back here, this is 2001, 2008. We have, Afghanistan, Iraq war, and then we go into Libya, and then there's the Russia-Crimea conflict starts, Yemen, Syria. But there's a lot of choppy price action in wartime charts, right? So the big thing here is wartime charts. It's becoming a trader's market. Back in 2016, 2017, we had the sort of recovery from the 2008 crisis, and now that we were bouncing back then. Things were looking good. There was a tech boom. A lot of tech companies were coming up. And the Federal Reserve's behavior at this point in time was very predictable. If you pull up the Fed funds rate, if I just make a comparison here, Fed funds rate, you'll see that the interest rates were actually on the rise in 2017, but the market was going to the moon. Why? Well, it was because the Fed said what they were going to do, and then they did what they said what they were going to do, and everyone saw it coming. It was very methodical, very predictable, and things were just going well, right? Now it's a little bit different. There's a lot more uncertainty. Interest rates are already high. Inflation is, apparently being tamed, but now we're in a wartime scenario, and so there's just going to be a lot of news that comes out over the coming year or two, or however long it is. It's just going to be very choppy because there's going to be events that just pop up, conflicts pop up, and the markets are going to have a tough time just going one direction. So I think we need to put our trading hats on and be ready for wartime charts.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, you could even pull up, was it Lockheed Martin? This is why there's different asset classes and different assets for different that will respond in different ways. The Lockheed Martin chart showed like a 23% move to the upside overnight. And this is why, because they're a contributor, they're an asset that's contributing to war materials. So when you're seeing, some things fall and other things rise, just like in the altcoin space, even though Bitcoin dominance might be going up, there will be some altcoins that perform better than others and other ones that fail. So yeah, this is interesting. Are there any other stocks that you're looking at right now in correlation with the wartime metrics?
No, I mean, I've obviously been very just focused on crypto, to be honest. No, I have not really been following much of the stock market. Of course, I follow the S&P and the indexes very closely because of the correlation. But of course, I mean, anything that's related to military intelligence, defense, especially AI related defense stocks. I think what is one? Palantir, PLTR. This one, I actually drew this line back in May because I was thinking about buying it, never did, but this one is performing well and is likely going to continue to do well and may actually start to get a blue sky breakout. I've been looking at Palantir for a while now. But no, other than that, I'm looking mostly just at Bitcoin. So and Ethereum, obviously, and the altcoins. Well, what I meant to say was I'm looking mostly at crypto, not the stock market. One of the more interesting charts I saw today was the Ethereum chart, which had a ridiculous pullback, right? It kind of shocked people. But what's also interesting is that we held the previous resistance as new support. We got a really nice bounce here today, right along that level. And so one thing that I like to do is I like to look at charts almost as if I don't know what the asset is, if you can even do that, right? So imagine you're just looking at this chart, and let's say you don't even know what time frame this is. It could be the 4 hour, it could be the weekly, it could be whatever. You don't even know. You're just looking at this chart. You would say, well, the price broke resistance and has come back to retest it as new support. This looks pretty good. Maybe a time for longs, right? If you were to imagine this is the 5-minute chart, right? That's kind of what it looks like right now. We have a huge bounce off this level. And if you go from low to high with your fibs, we tested the 1618 deep retrace down, but that coincided right with our 2022, 2023 resistance. And so I'm liking this bounce. I mean, this was kind of a needed flush, I guess. Not something that I foresaw. I was actually wrong about the recent price action, but I'm looking at the Ethereum chart thinking that this is actually quite constructive. It's not destructive yet. Maybe, yeah, for the short term, very destructive. But in the long term, quite constructive. It's kind of just going full circle and looking for a bounce here. And we came up right on that weekly upward sloping trend line. So we had the trend line, the 1618 retrace, and the previous resistance all coincided together right there, and we bounced. So if we can hold this zone, I would say that Ethereum is actually looking constructive. As hard as that is to believe, that is what it is. Now, what would it be? How would it look to be destructive? I mean, we have to basically destroy the structure. We would have to lose that previous resistance as support, lose the trend line, and then you're destroying the macro trend. But right now, the macro trend is still constructive. And for Bitcoin, interesting price action, obviously, huge liquidations, but we tapped exactly the the ETF approval / rejection candle as new support. And I'm not sure if that, I didn't check to see if that lined up with a fib, go from high to low, or low to high, I mean. Actually, yeah, that lines up with the 1272 there. Interesting enough. And if we do lose this, which right now we have a pretty nice bounce going, I mean, anything's possible. If we were to lose that support, I think we would see a move down towards 43,200. And that actually lines up with some weekly closes. That's a weekly candle body close zone right here. So from that ETF approval zone. So yeah, I mean, I think that right now in the daily, this bounce looks pretty promising in a way. But of course, we'll see the close. If we can get near that open, I mean, that gives us the potential for a hammer candle on the daily, which would be absolutely insane. Though it's going to be difficult, again, for people to just be bullish and just, go long, and because of all the uncertainty globally. Though Larry Fink from BlackRock recently said that he believes Bitcoin is a bet against optimism. So if the big dogs start to buy Bitcoin because they're not optimistic, well, then Bitcoin may actually become less correlated. But we'll see. That's going to take a long time for that to happen. But if that's how Bitcoin is treated and regarded, well, maybe Bitcoin can do well in a wartime uncertainty environment.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's I said this last night on the spaces we all hopped in impromptu. I think that anybody that's studying Bitcoin, they have the hope for the day that Bitcoin truly breaks the correlation. And it's like, no, this is truly the safety asset. And every moment of something breaking, they trade like this is the moment. This is the moment. And it's like, it keeps not being the exact moment because, we have hundreds of years thousands really, but if we think about just stock markets being around 150, 170 years of global market trading, legacy tied in with sort of ideas about what's going to happen in this market, and also how entrenched the US dollar is and oil, and the narrative around hedging bets, and especially more so than ever we have institutions that are participating. How do you expect now over the next throughout August, really, do you think this is going to be shaken off, or do you think that people that have been looking for opportunities in Bitcoin are going to start, maybe some wealthy, maybe some ultra wealthy, maybe some nation states starting to allocate into Bitcoin, being that the ETFs are available now and we're seeing these good prices? Or do you think they're going to wait for lower?
Well, if there was the Watcher Guru on Twitter posted this saying that BlackRock, Fidelity, Grayscale, and MicroStrategy have not sold their Bitcoin despite the market crash. So I guess they have some analytics, some intelligence there, and they're saying that those guys are not selling right now. And as you just mentioned, what was it? What's the name of that one wallet? The one that was buying today.
Oh, Mr. 100.
Mr. 100, see, the whales are either not selling or just accumulating, because smart money knows that you shouldn't be the dip, you should buy the dip. You shouldn't be the top, you should sell the top, right? So I think that people are going to be buying Bitcoin below 50,000, which we just got below briefly, and the price could barely even stay there, right? And we had, was it almost $1 billion in liquidations? So those types of flushes and those types of liquidation levels usually signal some kind of low point. Is it going to be the ultimate low? Who knows? But at least for now, I think Bitcoin has found its footing in this area. And we're probably going to see a lot of choppiness. A lot of people, so if I pull up like the S&P, people often, the way the human mind operates is that you're always looking for straight down or straight up, right? If you're not experienced, you're just looking for one direction. But people's heads tend to spin because the market doesn't go either, right? The S&P, for all we know, could be looking to bounce right back up towards the high, maybe the 786 from high to low, and then create a lower high, right? And this is going to make people's heads spin, because if we have wartime charts where it's just totally choppy and there's a lot of uncertainty, go to the 786 and it looks like we're going to recover, and then we pull back and we hit a lower low. I mean, this is the type of stuff that I'm expecting right now, is just a lot of instability, a lot of uncertainty. Of course, we'll see what the Fed does and how that affects the market. But the news right now globally, it's just not a good look. I mean, countries are, even Western countries are destabilizing, civil unrest, there's war, there's threats of war, countries, it's just wild out there. So I don't think that things are going to be just one direction. It's going to be really, really choppy. And so I think traders are going to have a paradise moving forward, and people that are just, kind of just want to go to the moon or go to, or just crash, neither of them are going to get what they want. And I think we're just going to chop around in this range for quite some time.
So considering that, before I let you go, because I know you're a busy guy as well, first off, thank you for popping in here. And before we do that, actually, I just want to shout out, make sure you're giving him a follow here at Kevin Svensson _. That's SVENSON _. What are you seeing? What would be, if you were looking and you were trading today on Bitcoin, what would be your sort of most likely scenario? Where do you see Bitcoin going today?
Well, this morning when the stock market opened, I actually jumped into a few altcoin longs on futures. So pretty much right when the stock market opened and we had some volume come in, some buy action come in, and then Bitcoin saw, a couple 1 minute green candles. I just figured, this sell-off has been tremendous. And the sentiment is so bad. People they really believe, well, when we were down here, people really believed it was over for real. And oftentimes, in my experience, longing that type of sentiment can be, you don't want to be too early, but longing that type of sentiment can be very profitable. And so I was just looking at some of the altcoins. Some of the rebounds are happening pretty fast right now because Bitcoin's bouncing back pretty fast. That's what I was trading today, was just a lot of low caps, because I figured the returns would be a lot better there. It's a little riskier. But I see Bitcoin testing at least 55,500. I was looking at this from high to low because we have an Adam and Eve. We actually have an Adam and Eve double bottom pattern right now on like the very low time frames. Prices coming up, consolidating sideways. If we're going to push again, which I think we are, we'd be looking for at least the 1618, 55,500. And so I'm probably going to take some profits on some of my longs, altcoin longs, when we reach this target, at least 50%, because it's not meant for a long-term trade. And if we can get past this point, which is a resistance, well, Bitcoin needs to actually get to 59,000 to close this daily green. Now, I'm not saying we're going to do that. I'm just wondering, how much do the bulls got and how serious are the bulls right now? Because if we can close that gap, that's best case scenario. The highest I think we would go is going to be somewhere at a previous support, maybe 57,000. But yeah, I mean, I would be looking to take profits. If you're already in a long, I wouldn't be longing right now. It's too risky. I'm already in longs. I'd be looking to take some of my profit at the 1618. I'll be trading altcoins based on Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin hits the target, I sell some of the altcoin positions, right? Because they're just following Bitcoin. There's too much uncertainty. If we get past that, maybe 57,000. Best case scenario, we hit the 2618 and we get a green hammer candle on the daily, which sounds unbelievable, but it is possible. And we've seen crazier things. We're only about less than 6% away from being able to get that. So we'll see if that happens. I mean, it'd be pretty epic. Sorry,
yeah,
my
no, I see
Chainlink
that.
alert
And,
just went
again,
off.
Kevin, thank you for popping in here and sharing some charts, sharing some of your experience. And everybody, make sure while you're watching, hit that like button if you like having these incredible guests come on. Matthew Highland as well, Kevin Svensson, the whole entire audience here. The story, the name of the game right now is the macro picture is still incredibly bullish. In the midterm and the small time frame, it feels like the world's over. That is when the best opportunity is there. So, Kevin, I'll let you go now, and I'll wrap out with just a small bit of some altcoin TA for the people here. And again, I appreciate
Hold on,
you so much.
Before we go, sorry, I'm a little distracted right now because I have a bunch of longs open. Chainlink long is printing at the moment. My entry was 866. This is just an alert here. What were you talking about with Chainlink? You mentioned that you were calling for a dip into a certain range, and then what were you looking for after that? I'm curious.
The dip into the certain range. Let's go ahead and pull that up. I was
you made
looking
a
at
call.
essentially. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me delete this. What I was looking at was this sort of midterm macro head and shoulders, followed by another head and shoulders here. And the target here that I had initially was this basically 940. But then the next level down is essentially right here at this, where all of these tops are, and the price action actually came down right into this. I did not have this one marked out, but we still have this descending resistance line here that potentially could flip to support, which is all the way down at 7.
What is your upside target in the short term? I might use your target for my trade.
My
Since you've been
upside
talking about this
target
for a while. Yep, right now.
Let's see, 4-hour chart. Well, I mean, if we're going to get a bit of a rally, I mean, this could hypothetically come up here into this $11 range, which is basically the low on this zone right here. That's a bit of that's a bit high, I think, for what we would see. The 382 is a little bit short of that, right about 1037. So I see somewhere in this region, 1037 to $11, somewhere in this region would probably be a likely sort of revisit, potentially another move back down. But we're getting a lot of buy volume coming in right now. We can see on the volume here.
Mention
the buy volume's dominating the sell volume.
Sorry, I'm like distracted, but I was going to mention this thing. Sorry, I'm just drawing random circles here. Chainlink has retraced back and basically done a full circle on the previous resistance, as Kelly just mentioned right there. And Ethereum has also done a similar thing. Look at this. And also, I mean, things are bouncing even further right now. So we've come full circle. Ethereum's back, hitting that 2023 resistance as new support. Chainlink comes back, 2023 resistance as new support. Everything has just basically made a full retrace, a very deep retrace, but not necessarily the worst case scenario, not the worst thing in the world, right? It's not totally destructive for a lot of these assets, especially not Ethereum. Ethereum on the macro looks actually pretty good right now. This weekly, I mean, today's what, Monday? This weekly could close green. I mean, it's only Monday. So things in this market can change much faster than people expect, right? I mean, the S&P gives us a hard enough bounce. Chainlink's weekly, Ethereum's weekly might be in the green. Even, well, maybe not Bitcoin, or maybe Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, all these weeklies may actually end up closing green.
I do want to point out, though, the number that you just mentioned a second ago, if we do a option J from the price that's just rejected at, Bitcoin did just push up right to 55.5, which was, I think, the level you said a second ago. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out the rest of the day, because this, I mean, technically it's broken past these range highs. A lot of chop's going to be playing out right now while they're shaking about. Everybody, if you don't know what you're doing, sit on your hands or look for opportunities and be willing to hold. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, just, I mean, if you're don't be a hero, right? There's like a couple rules I always tell myself. One is be hard to kill. Don't use excessive leverage. Don't over leverage, and then 2 is don't be a hero, right? And don't fight the trend, right? So, I mean, that's harder to do in a sideways range like this. It's harder to understand what the trend is in the short term. You can always look at it multiple ways. If you're looking at the monthly chart, in my opinion, the trend is still up on the monthly here. The weekly chart is also technically still up. It's a higher low from that previous major low after the ETF was approved. Lower time frames, you maybe have, like the daily chart, you might want to have a bit of a bearish bias. If we bounce up, there's probably going to be some retest back down or something like that. But in the very short term, I'm bullish right now. I mean, I think we might see a little bit more continuation, maybe to this higher low. I mean, to this previous low here, 57,000. And if we get there, I mean, we're only $1,000 away from closing the daily green. I mean, that would be a bit shocking, but it's possible. Anyway.
No, I mean, I completely agree. Everybody, you heard it here. Kevin Svensson, make sure you give him a follow. I actually have to wrap because I have another thing I want to do. Before we go, stay with me here, Kev. I just wanted to show somebody super chatted. So special shout out to you. Let's go ahead and do Arrow. You want to look at Aerodrome. Let's go to crypto, Arrow, Coinbase. I mean, this is obviously newer project, but DEX on the base ecosystem. And look at this massive. This is, everybody thought this was running away from them. You didn't get a chance. Well, look at where the price came down to, all the way down to 39 cents, push back up. And look at this. This is what he was talking about with the potential hammer candle setup on the daily for Bitcoin. If this, for instance, if this candle closes like this, this is bears making every attempt they can and bullish appetite eating this back up. This is a signal for a potential reversal to come back up. This does not mean it's guaranteed, but look at all this volume coming in there. If we look at this on the 4-hour, I mean, yeah, still a lot of volume here. I'd be watching this as this pushes up. All of these zones in here, 73 cents looks like a very interesting point to me. Previous range low. That's what I'd be watching. If this does come here and start to reverse, I'll be watching this to at least test these candle body lows around 53 cents. That's what I'm seeing. But I'm going to have to let you go, Kevin. I'm going to have to let everybody else go because I got some things I got to do. Everybody, if you are a BitLab member, we do have we have member streams all week. Today we got one at 5 o'clock. We got another one tomorrow, another one Wednesday. Make sure you tune in. We're going to be breaking this all down. I do want to shout out our channel sponsors, our channel partners, CoinW. We are starting that live training sessions here very shortly. So make sure you sign up with that link that's pinned in the top of the comments. It's also directly below this video in the first line of the description. Sign up there, deposit some money, minimum of $100 deposit. It's your money. You keep it, get you involved. It basically gives you a free pass to participate in those live trading sessions, as well as getting up to $30,500 in bonuses. Make sure you do not trade your entire portfolio. Make sure that you have an allocated amount that you're utilizing when you are trading so you can protect yourself. We are getting into that volatility, which is going to wreck a lot of people. But for traders, this is what it's all about, taking advantage of these opportunities. And of course, thank you so much to our channel partners, Arculus. Make sure you're protecting your crypto. Make sure you're protecting your future. GetArculus.com. Use code LAB10, LAB10 for 10% off, because right now, this is preeminently important, because when you start seeing these pressures in the market with sell side pressure, this is when you start to see not only people, not only institutions, but also exchanges that are swimming naked, misallocating how they're managing funds, etc. This is when you start seeing pressures and potential failures out there in different crypto exchanges if it were to happen. So make sure you're protecting yourself. Use code LAB10 at getarculus.com. Everybody, make sure if you're signed up here on BitLab Academy, become a member on the channel or over at lab.bitlabacademy.com/deal so you can get involved in those member streams. That's all I got for you today. Again, there's Kevin Svensson himself staring off at the plant. Everybody, we love you. We appreciate you. We want you to succeed. That's what this is all about. Let's welcome these times of disruption. Let's welcome these red candles, because this is what it's all about. If you can take a shot in these dark times, then you have incredibly bright times if you manage yourself. That's all we got. Love you guys. We're going to head over to DJ Alpha now. Thank you again. Make sure you follow Kevin at Kevin Svensson _. You got any last words?
No, just don't be the dip, buy the dip. Don't be the top, sell the top. And always use caution. But have fun.
That's all we got, everybody. Adios, muchachos. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Falco, for the ticket to the roller coaster ride, baby.